Phase number 3 is the documentation of the EA. This phase is where the actual documentation will take place. There are 6 steps in this phase. Step number 1 or step number 11 of the overall methodology is evaluate existing business and technology documentation for use in the EA. In this particular phase, what the EA team will do is look into all the components that needs to be documented. This includes components that is already existed or artifacts that is already existed, and also artifact that needs to be created, or components that needs to be documented. So generally, this activity is like taking an inventory of the components that already exist in the enterprise and mapping them to existing documentation. This step is about identifying those required components. The documenting of the components is done in the next step, which is document current views of existing EA components in all areas. The documentation methods and tools that the EA team will use in documenting the existing components and non-existing components, or components that needs to be documented, is done using the tools and methods that the EA team have identified earlier in step 8. These documentation artifacts are organized by levels of the framework and are stored in the EA repository. The next step, step number 13, is develop several future business and technology operating scenarios. This is basically about the future directions of the organization. The first two here is about identifying current views, current components, and then document it. This particular step, step number 13, is about future views. The future directions of the organization can be because of internal influences, such as the change in top management, employee turnovers, etc., or it can be because of external influences, such as the change in market demand, for example, economic influence, the organization's competitors' influences, and so on. We need to have this future business scenarios, because we do not know what to expect in the near future, because it has not happened yet, but still all these components fall in that future needs to be documented. So we need to figure out, or we need to think of what are the future business scenarios. The EA team should develop at least three or more future scenarios. The 3 examples of scenarios will include scenarios if the status quo is maintained, which means that the organization would continue as it is, but with some minor external and internal influences. That is one. Number 2, a scenario that needs to be developed is a scenario that is optimal, that involves optimal business or technology operating environment is encountered. For example, a change to business of a direction of the organization, or for example, the introduction of a new technology such as the use of AI, cloud, or IoT in the organization. So if in the future, if there is a move towards that direction, adopting new technology, that could be a possible future business scenario. Scenario number 3 is the scenario that involves high threat survival situation. For example, the emergence of new competitors with better products, for example. This type of scenario is also needs to be included in the EA management plan. So why are we identifying all these three scenarios? This is because of the good thing about having all these scenarios, that it will make the organizations more prepared when facing the scenario, especially in resource planning, um, workforce, or required new tools or hardware or systems.